Do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a proven roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. We walk you through the exact same process that we use to run franchise marketing campaigns for our clients at scale that has resulted in triple-digit growth. This blueprint isn't for anyone. It's not for people just starting a franchise. It's not for franchises without long-term goals. This is for franchises that want to scale up their marketing in a predictable and profitable way using a proven roadmap. If you want to sell more franchises, keep your current franchisees happy, and learn from people who have already done it, go to franchisegrowthblueprint.com and sign up today. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. Today, I have some very special guests from the UK. Tim Slesinger, CEO of easyStorage, and Nigel Dawson, who is the franchise director and co-founder. Tim, Nigel, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jordan.
Hi, Jordan. Thanks for having us.
No problem. It's a pleasure to have the both of you. In fact, I think this is the first episode where we've had two people come on. So it's great to have the both of you.
Well, thank you for having us both.
No problem. So for those who don't know the both of you, could you explain a bit more about yourselves and about easyStorage?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I start. My background has been storage for 25, nearly 30 years now. I sold a company recently that I set up in Moscow in Russia, which is a document storage or records management business. And I set that up in 1998. And it was basically a very similar way to the way we set up easyStorage, which was just with me and a van and one other person. And we built that business from Moscow, which was the first one, to 37 cities in 11 countries. And we became by very far the market leader in records management in Central and Eastern Europe. And it was a really great ride. It was a company that we were very proud of when we sold it. It got to something quite sensible. So I've always loved storage. And when I moved back to the UK, having sold that business, I wanted to get back into storage and looking around at the market, wanting to see what hadn't been best utilized, and basically looked at new ways of approaching businesses, saw that the personal storage market, which is dominated by walk-in, so the big box type variety, was very expensive in the UK, and it wasn't growing as fast as perhaps it should. The market here is about $1 billion, whereas in the US it's about $42 billion. So it's a huge amount larger in the US, and that's fundamentally down to the US being or the market there being a lifestyle choice for storage, whereas in the UK, it's only an event-driven basis. So that's basically with death, divorce, relocation, you're forced to use it. Whereas in America, it's lifestyle, so someone will stay for a lot longer. So consequently, it's much more expensive in the UK. So we thought if we could drive that price down, would we get a lifestyle customer base, and therefore a longer lasting customer base. So we came up with the idea of delivering storage units, which we call pods, to customers, and then loading them up, bringing them back, and then storing them very efficiently in sort of secondary warehouse space in secondary locations. And I'm pleased to say it's working. So that was that on the idea. And then it was how to roll it out. And there are two options that you can have. You can be an owner operator and build it out yourself, which is fundamentally what I did with my last business. But that takes a lot of capital and a lot of time. Or you can franchise. and I was very new to franchise. I didn't really understand the complexity of it, but I asked around to see if there was someone could be a non-exec for us who could teach us the way. And Nigel's name came up a couple of times. So I met with Nigel and we hit it off immediately. And we talked and talked and talked, went on for hours and then days. And then I said to Nigel, would he be a non-exec? And he said, no, I won't. And
right.
he said that, it's far too good an opportunity with the brand and the proposition. He'd like to join. So it was a very easy conversation, very quick conversation, and got Nigel to come on as a co-founder. And the rest is history, as they say, in terms of the franchise. Maybe I'll let Nigel take over.
I have no background at all in storage, but not surprisingly, quite a long history in franchising. I've been in the franchise industry for over 30 years now, so quite a long time. Started my early career, I actually studied in electronics, so I wasn't, when I was studying, thinking about franchising, but I had to make my way in the world and joined a business which was a franchisor, and that was my sort of first taste of what franchising was all about, and spent a few happy years working with that company. But then I went on, and I've also been quite an entrepreneur and wanted to set my own business up, and I did that and built a business up over the following sort of 10 years, which was nothing to do with franchising, but gave me a real good insight, I think, into the challenges that people running small businesses face, and that was very successful, and eventually sold that. And decided I really, really enjoyed my time in franchising and wanted to get back into that. And looking around the market, what was very evident with franchising is there were lots of sort of unknown brands that were new to franchising emerging, in the marketplace. But there were brands that nobody had heard of, but they had lots of opportunities. And then on the other side of the coin, there were lots of really established brands, perhaps like McDonald's, that everybody knew, but there were very few opportunities to roll that out because it was pretty well established. But an opportunity arose with it was a leading opticians in the UK called Dolland and Aitchison, which had actually been on our high streets for over 250 years and had a long pedigree in franchising, but they hadn't done anything with the franchise model for over 15 years at that point. And they were looking for somebody to come in and head up development of the franchise model within them, their business as a way of growth, and that was really exciting. So I joined the team, and we formed a new team, and went on to open many new stores under a new franchise proposition, which was fit for purpose at that time, and that was really really good. We merged them with Allianz Healthcare, which owns Boots, and then I continued to work there for quite a few years, rolling out and developing the franchise model and the commercial terms of that within that organisation. I then had an opportunity to get really into a smaller business because working with Boots was great, but I really wanted to be more hands-on, and an opportunity arose to establish a new franchise in the UK under a very successful brand called Guino, which is a premium French skincare brand, and they were very keen to build a franchise business in the UK market. So had the opportunity to join as franchise director and again develop the proposition, which is really what I'd done previously in Boots and DNA, was redevelop a new proposition to market and then launch it, and again did that very successfully. But couldn't resist back to the blue chip world, so joined Centrica, which owned British Gas here, and a division of that is Dyno Rod and Dyno Plumbing, and again very similar to my earlier career, where a very well-known brand but hadn't really evolved a franchise model which had been established for over 50 years at that point, and it needed a team to come in and make that fit for purpose. And by this time, I think in my career, I was pretty seasoned at taking older propositions or new propositions and bringing them to market or making them fit for purpose. And we went on to totally do something quite radical there in terms of the commercial terms, because as an established business, it was very hard you can start with a blank canvas and just create something you wanted from scratch. You really had to evolve something that was already there. And we went on then to win an award for innovation for that work with the British Franchise Association. So that was very successful. And I was actually quite happy there. And someone said to me, there's this guy called Tim, you should meet him. He's got this idea for franchising one of the Easy brands. So really quite intrigued, met with Tim. and fell in love with storage. I mean, really from within the first sort of 10, 15 minutes, I was hooked on the whole model of what the storage business was about, the recurring revenue, and the Easy brand, such an iconic brand, and the opportunity to develop a new franchise proposition in the UK market with such a well-known brand, but with such a blank canvas on which to build it, was just too exciting. So after a couple of days of chatting, and I was asked to be a non-exec, as Tim said, very quickly said, no, I actually want to be involved. I want to be part of this, and the rest is history, as they say. And then we got cracking, and I joined Tim.
Wow. From the both of you, that is one heck of a story. And you both are just steeped in experience. That's fantastic. It sounds like you guys are a match made in heaven. So Tim, you mentioned something really interesting in that culturally, in the US and in North America, it's very, like, storage itself is very different from how things are in the UK. And you've kind of flipped that mindset in the UK. I'm curious, how did the both of you go about changing that mindset and almost creating a new niche within the storage industry?
Well, I mean, it's not a difficult one, really. It's price. It's price driven. So easyJet, which is our sister brand, part of the Easy family of brands, did exactly the same thing with low cost travel. I mean, copying in effect the Southwest Airlines from America, but if you bring the price down, then it's going to be more affordable, and therefore people will use it more often, and therefore it will become part of a way of life. So it was really a cost thing. So we came up with a storage solution that has enabled us to offer the price at 50% of what is standard in the market. And on top of that is to make it more convenient by being mobile storage. So we bring the storage unit to the customer. So that's really what it's been. And what we've found is that people are now coming to us with their event-driven activity, be it death, divorce, relocation, which are sort of 80% of the traditional self-storage reasons. But then they might bring 2 or 3 pods, storage units, to us, and then take 2 back, but leave 1 in, and there's your lifestyle.
And I think we've also seen, haven't we? We've seen people that previously just ruled out storage as being too expensive, and trying to find other solutions, suddenly seeing this as an opportunity that was accessible to them that previously wasn't. So it's not only looking at the existing market that was looking for a storage solution, it's creating a new market, because the price point drops so much, it makes it accessible to the masses, which in essence is the whole philosophy behind the Easy brand. It's making it accessible to the masses, not the few.
And I think, just to put it in perspective, in America, the average monthly storage bill is $91, which is arguably affordable to anyone. In England, the average storage price is £190, so that's sort of like $225, and in London is £360, so it's close to $400. Now that starts to become pretty sensible money. It doesn't matter how rich you are. That's quite a big hit, of pre-taxed income.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a huge gap. I did not realize it was that vast. So I'm curious, with one of your, like, with the shift towards a more affordable storage solution, how do you prevent yourselves from being commoditized and being kind of like a race to the bottom with other competitors?
We'll get right back to the show, but do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. To find out more, visit franchisegrowthblueprint.com. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Now back to today's episode.
Firstly, the traditional self-storage is all built around a property portfolio with pretty expensive land costs. Financing costs are low, but they have accelerated repayment schedules. So they've got pretty fixed costs, which they can't come down on too much, or else they'll be it's just not viable. So then you've got competitors. Now we're spending huge amounts of money, I mean, into the millions of dollars in developing proprietary IT, which helps us to lower the cost of running the business. So it's all about automating what are otherwise quite expensive processes like invoicing, recurring billing. We check on seasonality. We manage our franchisee schedules. We have a proprietary software called Vault, and that manages a big portion of each franchise's operations. So to be able to do that, it's taken huge investment and a lot of time. So it's not easy for someone just to replicate that. So we build what the great Warren Buffett says is we build a moat. So it's the barriers to entry are quite high unless you want to replicate what we've done, which would be difficult.
And I think that, what's important is we are cheaper because of the way we operate the business, not because we're cutting margins. I mean, our margins are important as they are in any business. So it's not about just giving margin away to be cheaper, and we work hard to preserve those. So it's about being well priced, and we won't race to the bottom line. I mean, we have had people try to undercut us, and we'll let them do that because that's not sustainable. So we're building a sustainable franchise business, and we have to protect that business for ourselves, for our franchisees, and ultimately our customers. So it's about being well priced and providing a great service for the price that we charge.
Very interesting. And I like, Tim, how you kind of brought up that moat that you're building with your IT infrastructure. And, I'm going out on a limb here, and I'm guessing that you're also, like, with this infrastructure, you're also able to get some pretty deep insights from a data perspective on opportunities on a location by location basis and across your system as a whole.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the main reasons why we did it in the first place, is so that you can see what's working, what's not working in real time. And that comes from, the marketing, if it's pay per click, or, seeing where your customers are coming from, what's exciting them, and then offering more of that up. So you've got that side. And then, price points, each franchise has its own pricing capabilities. So we can see if someone flexes their prices up or down, what effect that has compared to the rest of their peer group. And we can see what local marketing efforts are doing and how, again, that is reflected across the franchise network as a whole. So it's a huge amount of data. We're very, very data hungry.
And it's enabled us to really do things, quite cleverly with the customer experience online, because the data tells us, where customers are dropping off, what their habits are when they're visiting our website. And we've been able to really tune and tailor that to make sure that we're meeting their expectations and providing a great experience for them online, as well as using the data to target the market. It's once you've got those customers, or you've got the impressions on your website, how you then manage them through to ultimately becoming a customer.
Very cool. I as someone who studied economics, I love that the both of you are leveraging data so much. So with that being said, let's dive a little deeper into that. I'd love to hear more about, what's the best marketing campaign that you've ran so far?
Are we talking in terms of generating franchisees or customers, end users?
Both. So let's talk on the consumer side and then on the franchise development side.
So I'll take the consumer side and I'll let Nigel do the franchise. On the consumer, I think that the best route to customers at the moment is pay-per-click, so Google. I don't think that's a huge surprise for anyone, but it's a very complex strategy in terms of getting the price right. So, knowing where to have your bid points and all of those sort of things. So the reason for that is because we're an event-driven business. So when something happens for to an individual, they'll then search for a solution. And the way that we search for things now is Google primarily. So that's the first way. The next one is referrals, and we've got a great partnership campaign for both existing customers who get rewarded for referring a friend, but also for people like estate agents or care homes or people like that, building companies and insurance brokers, who can introduce their customers. Now, and it gives their customers an advantage because we give them a slight discount, and also we're well priced in the first place. We have a great brand, we have a great reputation, we have on Trustpilot a huge, a great rating. So that works really well for them. You know, they can introduce us and they get paid a referral fee for doing so. So that is becoming more and more sort of a mainstream for us. So those are the two things. But I think what we're trying to aim for, and it's a long-term play, is to go for that lifestyle. We want to be known as low price and to get into people's lifestyle brand, and that will come through social media to a main extent. And that's something we're going to be rolling out this year.
Very cool.
And I think from attracting new franchisees, I mean, there is only one real mechanism that's absolutely, you know, what a franchisor wants, and that's referrals, it's recommendations. You know, when people find something good, they like to shout about it. And the majority of our recruitment is actually on the back of referrals of, you know, people that have either joined us or know people who have joined us. So that's great, and it's something that I think the brand is a big lever in that respect, because I think as soon as people see the Easy brand, they feel very comfortable with it. They like to be part of it. They're proud to be part of it, and coupled with a great business model with a recurring income base, I think that you know makes it very attractive. So we rely on referrals a lot, but also, of course, we still do some of the traditional things. I think this year has been a bit more challenging than normal. In the past, we've attended many of the sort of national franchise exhibitions that you know people tend to go to. We have two primary ones in the UK that you know attract a lot of people and are great shows. And normally we'd be there and we'd take one of our large trucks in there, which is big and orange and stands out, and we'd talk to an awful lot of people. And you know, a lot of the franchisees who have joined us have been people that went to the show looking at something entirely different. You know, got caught, saw the Easy sign, saw the van, came over and had a chat, and I suppose not dissimilar to when I first met Tim, heard the story and was hooked. So shows are great, but of course this year we've not been able to do that, and it's been a little bit of a hunt for alternative mechanisms, and some of those that have been trialled are things like online virtual exhibitions, which personally I'm not a particular fan of. But also, you know, we've done more in the media this year, and we're certainly leveraging some of the forums and social media opportunities that are out there. And I think not so much being in the traditional way, we don't advertise a franchise. We talk about our business a lot. We share stories about what we do, and we talk about some of the exciting things that are happening, and you know, whether that's about technology or the marketplace, etc. And I think that intrigues people, and I think people become interested in what we're doing. And then from that, you know, the relevant conversations take place. So the majority of our marketing to attract new candidates is predominantly through word of mouth or just conversation. I think what's key for us after that is it's great having that dialogue, but we're very early in our process. We invest heavily in discovery days, and we share an awful lot of information at those events, so people can really come to us and become very well informed about, you know, what it is we are, what we're doing, what their expectation should be of an easyStorage franchise, what that actually looks like. And we set that out very clearly, very early on in the journey, I think earlier than many other brands. But I personally feel that's really important. And then if the fit's there, if that appeals to the potential candidate and they appeal to us, then that's when we'll start getting into some more, you know, one-on-one dialogue. But yeah, I think it's just talking about it. And this year we've seen so many specialist groups coming through different social media channels, really designed at supporting the franchise community and helping other franchisors, just contributing, being there, giving advice, being able to talk to people, just puts the brand out there and generates a momentum in its own right.
I love it. I like how you take such an intimate and kind of hands-on and one-on-one approach to that franchise development process, Nigel. So guys, switching gears, one question I always like to ask our guests is, what advice would you give someone just starting out as a franchisor?
I think, first of all, be really clear in what your franchise proposition looks like. So, and that will inevitably involve having, proof points and have tested the business through, a pilot. And not just necessarily one pilot. I mean, when we piloted easyStorage, we piloted it in London where we're based, but we also piloted in other parts of the UK. So our first two franchisees that came on board didn't come on board as traditional franchisees. They were recruited as pilot franchisees, which had very different commercial terms to that we offer today, but also very different expectations. Those individuals realized that they were contributing to the development of a proposition, and perhaps had slightly different skill sets than our normal candidate would have. So I think, first of all, you're really clear in what the franchise is and have absolute proof points of what you're doing. The next thing is, and I believe in this so strongly, is transparency. It is what it is, and say it as it is. There's no point trying to dress something up that isn't absolutely the truth, or trying to present something in a manner that's more attractive than it really is. I think people, certainly in my experience, if you have integrity, if you're open and honest and transparent, warts and all, it makes you far more credible. And we're not perfect by any means, and everything we do isn't perfect, and we're the first to put our hands up and say that, and be honest about that, and then work with franchisees, work with our partners to be able to improve in those areas. And I think that creates a sense of engagement from people that otherwise you don't get. I think I see some franchisors, that they expect to be the perfect finished product when they roll to market. And in reality, that's not how it works. Or they won't recognize their weaknesses. And in the end, that just comes back and bites you. So, be a little bit humble, be a little bit, transparent, let people understand what's going on in your business and share that. Be proud of your achievements, but recognize your weaknesses, and work as one team, together, rather than, the franchisor and franchisee being deemed as separate entities. Because I think as soon as you get into that two-way relationship, then that's where problems start to creep in.
And Jordan, let me just give my 2 cents worth as a newbie to franchise, as I was before I met Nigel. It's, don't try and make it up as you go along. You've got to really understand franchising. I always thought, how difficult can it be? And it turns out that you can get it wrong quite quickly if you don't know what you're doing. So it's to find someone who you can find as a mentor, or even better as a partner, like I did with Nigel. And once you've done that, I think as a collaborative effort, Nigel and I sat down in the early days, and I was very keen to understand what it meant, to have a franchisee. What are the obligations of us to them and from them to us? And that led on to, the right legal document, and that is paramount. Nigel's been very involved with formulating what has become quite a standard in the industry in terms of agreements, but, being honest and open and all of those sort of things. But all of that sits over, what is your financial model? You've got to know what your financial model is. Like any business, where is your revenue going to come from through those franchisees? Where's their revenue going to come from? And how long is it going to be before you can, stand on your own 2 feet without investment? So then you get your right investment. Yeah. So it's not a very different business in that front. It's just the source of income is slightly different. What we did is, we had a pilot, which not only helped us understand what the model was, but that gave us a secondary income, which was the primary income of franchisees. But that's enabled us to float a little bit along the investment curve. So I think that's very, very important. See, Nigel speaking from someone who understands it, but if you don't understand it, you got to find someone who does.
And I think, the other thing, and the point you make, Tim, there about the financial model and the business plan is really important. But I've seen people that, set out in franchising, and they create their model and they sort of say, there it is, as if it's sort of set in concrete and never to change. Our model and our P&Ls are evolving all the time. We review monthly assumptions. We review against the reality, against the current economic climate and against what's going on in the world. And we test those assumptions, and we're not frightened to change the model, and the model is evolving. It's a living document. So when we're working with new candidates, inevitably the model is slightly different to people we were working with 12 months ago, and it will continue to change because the world, that's what happens in the real world. It does change, and you've got to be on top of that and understand what metrics in that model, just because they were right on day one doesn't mean they're right 12 months or even 6 months later. So keep reviewing it, keep testing it, and keep checking against it.
I love those insights, guys. They're absolutely fantastic. So we are coming up to the end of our episode here. And the way I like to end all of them is something that I call the lightning round. It's just a few fast-paced questions. Are the both of you ready?
Okay.
I hope so.
They're all easy questions. Don't worry, no hard balls. So first question is, what is your favorite tool or app that you cannot live without?
I think Vault, which is our proprietary system, it runs everything for us. I mean, it really does.
I totally agree. Absolutely.
Awesome. Second question, what is your favorite book?
Do you know, my recent favorite book is Mark Benioff's book, the founder of Salesforce. It's so inspirational and uplifting. Amazing. I read that about a month or so ago, and it's a must read for anyone that's in business.
Yeah, it's a hard one for me to answer. There's one on the tip of my tongue and I just can't think of it at the moment. So can I come back to that one in a minute?
Of course. So next question is, who is a franchise leader that you look up to?
For me, it's got to be obviously Stelios is our the founder of the Easy Group, and other than him, Richard Branson. I think Richard Branson's a legend, and I know that Stelios also looks up to him. I think he's just been amazing.
It would be really tempting to sort of give some names of some really sort of famous, well-known people, but actually the biggest inspirations in my franchise career are actually people I've worked under before, and I've learned a lot from. So, and there was a mentor of mine called James Hogg, who I found very, very inspirational, which will mean nothing to anybody else. But often I find myself sort of wondering what James would do and measuring myself against that. So for me, it comes from people that I've directly experienced and admired their work and learned from.
Very cool. All right, guys, last question, I promise. Where can people find out more about you and your company?
So it's easyStorage.com. Very, very simple. Very easy.
Very easy.
Awesome. Well, Tim and Nigel, thank you both so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. You shared some really, really cool insights that I know our listeners are really going to find useful.
Jordan, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Thanks, Jordan.
No problem. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. If you found this episode useful, share it with a friend and subscribe now so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And until then, happy marketing.